Shall we get started? There we go. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good day, good morning, wherever you're joining us from today. You are here at Cultivating Voices, live poetry for our Sunday edition. Today, it's the second Sunday of May, which means it is our new books showcase. We have an exceptional showcase for you today, where we are going to be graced with the beautiful poetry, astounding poetry of just four poets who bring so much to the art and the community of poetry. And today, those four are Michael Durack, Amy Abdullah Berry, Tayve Neese, and Yuyutsu Sharma. They've all read with us before, and it is with beautiful anticipation that we're able to create today's constellation. I don't know. I can't recall from all the past programs if they've ever been in a reading together, but at this point on our show, I don't think so, but certainly not in a new book showcase. And we are just exuberant beyond exuberance to be able to bring the program to you today. Well, here in the States, it also is Mother's Day. And I just want to say happy Mother's Day to all the energy of mothers everywhere. And, that can take many forms, many forms. Biological, spiritual, psychological, there's many ways of mothering. So I send all those good tidings to you. Well, in our new book showcase, we feature four poets whose books are out within the past year. These folks' books are relatively new and or very new, most recently out. And again, it is a beautiful opportunity to be able to welcome the four of them. They'll be reading for about 15 minutes apiece. And our job, everyone, whether here live in Zoom, and thank you for the live Zoomers who are joining us in our studio today, or those of you watching on Facebook, welcome to you watching us live. And of course, the hundreds of you that we know that are so devoted to watching the program if you're not able to join us live. And it's quite incredible to know that hundreds and hundreds of you still are devoted to watching the program week after week after week. And we thank you for that, and know that you're going to be enjoying this one, not only today or whenever you're watching it, but I know it's going to be one that you'll go back to for years to come. That is all due to the fabulous devotion of Don Krieger, who preserves all of our programs on YouTube, also on Facebook, curated. And of course, we wouldn't have the program without Kim Ports-Parsons' contributions to bringing all the cats together from week to week. Thank you to the both of you. And of course, thank you to all of our audience members in all the formats I mentioned. Well, let's get to the reading then for today. Our first reader today, we were having a very enthusiastic conversation about different times that we've cross paths in Limerick, and some of the experiences of the reading series and the presses in Limerick. Our first reader today is Michael Durack. And Michael Durack lives in County Tipperary, Ireland. His poems have featured in the Blue Nib, Skylight 47, the Cafe Review, Live Encounters, the Banyan Review, surprise, surprise, the editor is with us today, Poetry Ireland Review, and many other publications. His work has been aired on local and national radio, and he is the author of a memoir in prose and poems, Saved to Memory, Lost to View. Michael's two previous collections are Where It Began and Flip Sides, which we've had the pleasure of hearing from on this program prior. His newest work, which we'll hear from today, is This Deluge of Words, which has recently been published by Revival Press. And a reminder, folks, please do use the chat generously to show your appreciation for our poets. Links to all of their books, Michael's new collection, This Deluge of Words, and the others will be populating in the chat. We do hope if you have the resources today, you will purchase 1, 2, 3, 4, or many more books of poetry. Make great gifts for mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, cousins, everybody. Poetry is for everybody. So enjoy the wonderful poetry of Michael Durack. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Sandy, and thanks, Kim and Don for facilitating this wonderful forum. My collection, This Deluge of Words, is divided into 4 sections, so I'll read some samples from each of the sections. The first part is mainly focused on memory, and I'll start with a family poem called Hard Hands. On his deathbed, my father remarked upon the hardness of my hands in closing his, repeating the mantra, your old hard hands, still baffled that a life of pen pushing had failed to plane the coarseness out of them. Today, he's 19 years in the grave, and I contemplate the still unyielding hands bequeathed to me by farming forebears, Duracks and Gearns, Clearys and Gildays, who milked the cows and followed the plough. And from the maternal limb of our genetic tree, tradesmen and herdsmen, Moronis and Hazes. Raised a middle child of 3, all sons, the youngest coarse-palmed like myself, having been a farmer all his life, the eldest with calloused fingertips from countless years caressing a guitar. The stiff handshakes with which we greet the world belie, we hope, the softness of our hearts. And speaking of guitars, I've been interested in music all my life, and for a time in my late teens and 20s, I played guitar to a very modest level. But this next poem recalls my very first encounter with that instrument, guitar. Well, we managed to make music sometimes, dragging our Christmas harmonicas across our lips until they bled, or piping the opening notes of the dawning of the day from squeaky tin whistles. And we envied the gifted ones whose hands could twiddle the buttons of a gaudy accordion to make it play the Rose of Aaron Moore. But that first guitar left us all flummoxed. The one that Johnny Harvey hauled into our kitchen. We lifted it, cradled it, positioned our fingers here and there, ran them across the strings, making metallic sounds, but no music. Its owner too, clueless about keys and chords. Like the auctioneer's hammer that never drove a nail, here was an instrument that never played a tune. I thought of Johnny Harvey years later, when my brother was teaching me the streets of Laredo, and when I in turn passed on my 3-chord legacy to a daughter wide-eyed and euphoric at having cracked the D-G-A enigma of love is all around. Thank you. There is an Irish proverb that goes, going to a wedding is the makings of another. And I am living testament to the truth, or at least the possibilities of that adage, because I met my wife at a country wedding back a long, long time ago. So this poem evokes fond memories for me, as well as allowing me to indulge my love of place names, those townland names or the names of tribal districts that litter the maps of my rural hinterland. The poem is called Kiss. Between Slieve and Loch Derg, we shared our first kiss. October, the wee small hours, back seat. Motoring from Ballybally towards Toomgraney, stragglers from a country wedding. The driver, I remember him well, but not the make and model of the car. It was blue, automatic shift. It broke down. But that is of no importance. What matters is that somewhere in the dark, in Ballycuggaran or Ballyloughnan, in Rahina Moor, Rahina Beg or Cahir, in Ballyhurley, Ballyheafy or Bale Kelly, your lips touched mine for the very first time. The townlands undistinguished and untraced. We might have been voyagers lost in space. But now those ancient tracts of land I bless, because somewhere on the road between the tribal Ballys and Raheens, our mouths connected in a loving kiss. Thank you. The second section of the book has about a half dozen poems on sporting themes and sporting settings. Now, the sports involved are mainly rugby and Gaelic games, which an American audience wouldn't be over familiar with. So I'll read one that has maybe a wider reach and relevance. It's a poem called The Wall. And in the opening line, I mentioned 3 sports grounds in Ireland. And they have something in common. Each one is situated adjacent to or end to end with a cemetery or burial ground. And that kind of unlikely linkage of places of the dead with places of the very much alive and active prompted this poem. And one other explanatory note, I mentioned the word schlitter, an Irish word, which means the small leather-cased ball used in the Irish game of hurling. And because it can be easily driven out of bounds, ball stop mesh or netting is used to prevent the ball from getting lost. So the poem is called The Wall. In Mannix Park, the Hyde and Smith O'Brien's, the players strut their stuff out on the pitch, sprinting and leaping, tackling and shooting, while from stand, terrace and grassy bank, supporters yell their ire or approbation. In the neighbouring field, stillness. In lieu of chalked lines, burial plots. For goalposts, marble crosses, granite stones. The home team holed up underground. Spectators, deferential and mute. As in a one-sided or windswept match, the action trends from town to graveyard end. A schlitter flies over the ball stop mesh, never to be retrieved. For those who cross that final boundary wall, there is no turning back. Thanks very much. Thank you. Moving on to the third section, which is subtitled In the Shadow of COVID. I started work on this collection in March or around the spring of 2020. So for quite a while, I was writing poems responding to the extraordinary circumstances we found ourselves in. So I'll read the opening and the closing poems from this section. The first one is called March. The third month of the calendar, a dangerous one. In like a lion, out like a lamb, many weathers. Caesar was butchered on the Ides of March, Christ crucified on its nones. St. Patrick expired on the 17th, the anniversary, so the biblical chronologists say, of Adam's farewell to the garden and Noah's maiden voyage aboard the ark. The COVID waves washed over us in March, leaving our arks at anchor, our airships grounded, our garden gates slammed shut in our faces. Thanks. And the final one in this section is appropriately it's called Vaccine Clinic, signaling the hopefully the end of the ordeal. And I can only say that the mood at my first vaccine clinic was one of giddy excitement, considering that we were all 70 plus years veterans lining up for our shot at the surgery wall. Vaccine clinic. Scrubbed up, smart casual, our best shoes dredged from storage. We queue beside the surgery wall, exchange excited small talk and hellos with Brendan and Tony, Madge and Margaret, as if we were going to a dinner dance, and all for a shot in the upper arm, an antidote to fear, a covenant that after this relentless groundhog present, a future with a smiling face awaits. The room once labeled ante is now post, a 15-minute stopover to reflect, to count our blessings before we all but skip into the light. Out of the blue, a solitary blackbird is singing its little heart out from a wire. So the final and longest section of the poem is a miscellany of poems in various styles and forms on a range of topics, some private, some public. And I'll start with the first one, and it's called In the Forest of Language. And the title of the entire collection comes from the final line of this poem. The poem looks at the evolution of the English language and the various roots that contribute to it. In the Forest of Language. At the end of my 5 km tether, a lockdown hostage, a COVID detainee, I take refuge in the forest of language, its foliage English, its roots universal. Like autumn sheddings, the words cascade. By their accents, you can tell them apart. Old Anglo-Saxon woods, fields, and houses, shepherds and daughters, friends, night and day. Ballets and chauffeurs, cliches and menus, honor and chivalry, begotten in France. Spanish fiestas, flotillas, and houses. Spanish fiestas, flotillas, and patios. Telepathy and policy, nurtured in Greece. Arabian alchemy, syrup and saffron. Tariffs and traffic, magazines, gauze. Assembled in Holland, wagons and yachts, landscapes and decoys, knapsacks and reefs. Iranian caravans, Malaysian bamboos, karma from India, kiosks from Turkey, piazzas and cupolas, rockets, volcanoes, concertos and cameos Italian designed, parasols, hurricanes, cannibals, grog, potatoes and maize from West Indian Isles, Brazilian cashews, toucans, piranhas, Mexican chocolate, tomatoes, coyotes, dingoes and wombats from distant Australia, jumbucks and billabongs, koalas and swags, old Yiddish glitches, chutzpah and bagels, Japanese haiku, emoji, karate, Scandinavian windows ransacked and husbanded, German hamburgers, seminars, wanderlust, American skyscrapers, bluesies and gangsters, junkies and gimmicks, slapstick, gung-ho, colleens and shebeens, homegrown in Ireland, hooligans, whiskey, banshees, smithereens. Blitzing my skyline, they are singing like birds, so I tilt up my face to this deluge of words. Thank you. So I don't know how I'm doing for time. I think I'll do two short ones, maybe to finish. This next one is 60, overshot it. It's based on a coincidence I discovered when I was doing a bit of research into the life and death of the Russian composer Prokofiev, and discovered something very interesting. The poem is called Angel of Death. Moscow, 1953, the 5th of March. The Angel of Death paid 2 house calls, the names of Stalin and Prokofiev in his book. In the House of Unions, the agent of the Great Terror reposed. The morning begot such mass, such urgency. The angel swooped and reaped 100 more. Amid the chaos, the maker of music was manhauled through back streets against the human tide. At his funeral, there were 30 souls, one for each piano, violin, and cello concerto, his every ballet, opera, symphony. So that's another March poem. And most of the poems in the collection are written in free verse, but I have included some form poems, a few sonnets, some villanelles, a pantoum, I think a ghazal, and a sestina. So I like the villanelle quite a lot, so I'll read, maybe to finish with, one of the villanelles, and it's based on 2 of my all-time favorite movies, Casablanca and Dr. Zhivago. Coincidentally, Dr. Zhivago is on Irish television this afternoon, but I didn't have the 3.5 hours to spare to watch it again. The poem is called Paris or Barricano. They'd always have Paris or Barricano, Lara and Zhivago, or Ilsa and Rick. Up on the big screen, we down below in the darkened parterre, the warm glow of compromised love washing over us from exotic, remembered Paris or Barricano. Mind hopping from Moscow to Morocco, an ecstasy of escapism from the humdrum domestic to the big screen from our seats down below. For Bergman, Bogart, Christie, Sharif and co. had little in common with a Kathleen and Mick. They'd always have Paris and Barricano, while we had Ballybunion, Salt Hill or Sligo. But hold on a minute, here's the trick. Between the big screen and down below is merely a matter of scale. Picture show and reality trade on the same emotions. The magic of love means we'll all have Paris or Barricano, whether up on the big screen or here down below. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Kim. Thank you all for listening.
Oh, that's Michael Durack, everyone. The new collection from Revival Press is this deluge of words. And you know what I've always appreciated about your work, whether I've heard it here or when I have had the occasion to go to Lime Square or even live in Limerick, I've had the pleasure to hear a poem or two, um, is it's not surprising that you have studied music for years, because I think of I think of the lyricist that you are and the musicality. There's a true cadence that you deliver, really unlike any poet that I listen to, and I love it in combination, of course, with your subject matter and how you kind of connect the notes of your language and your words. That poem, "The Forest of Language," I mean, Yuyutsu put in the chat, you know, was brilliant catalog, and I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. Um, just fabulous. And again, folks, I want to remind you, this is our new book showcase. So if you are enjoying this preview of what is in the entirety of the collection, please do support not only the endeavor of poetry, but the specific poets writing these poems and their presses as well. Thank you again so much, Michael. It was just a beautiful, beautiful reading and way to kick off our reading today. And I'll just say one last thing. You know, your talk about COVID and kind of that look back at COVID, although you know we were experiencing it all together here in Zoom at that time on this format and experiencing the poems. I can't help but think that even feeling like we're looking a little bit into the rear view, I'm looking far forward and thinking how important these poems that we've lived and created in this time will be for time immemorial, because we will be history will look back at the poetry written during this time to get they will look to the poets to see what it was like. And so I so appreciate that your book is dedicated to that endeavor in many ways. Thank you so much. Well, again, everyone, this reading today is an abundance of riches. We go from Michael Durack to now to Amy Abdullah Berry. I mean, I can't stand this. I can't stand. That's why I'm sitting, because I really can't stand today. I'm like, this is too good. I have to ground myself to be ready for these readings today. You know, Amy's another poet who's been with us since the beginning, the early beginnings of Cultivating Voices live poetry, and it's just always a pleasure whenever she's able to join us. And she's been a guest when I've asked her like to come on the program. We were doing this thing, we experiment a lot, and there was one time when we were saying, oh, let's just have a surprise guest poet come on. And you know, Amy, like I contacted Amy was like, of course I'll come in and you know, be like your surprise poet. And just you just are a great poetry citizen, not only for Cultivating Voices live poetry, but what you also do to support poetry as the founder of Global Writers. And I have enjoyed getting to know you and experiencing all the ways that you are bringing poetry to so many people. And it's just a pleasure. So Amy Abdullah Berry, originally from Penang, Malaysia, has lived in Athlone, Ireland since 2003. She is published widely, including in Ciphers, Southward, Paris Lit Up, and again, just numerous publications. And I always appreciate when she publishes two Cultivating Voices to let us know of one. It's always fun when a poem of hers pops up on our feed, and I enjoy it so much. Amy has received awards and accolades, such as a feature in Breaking Ground Ireland and being chosen for Poetry Ireland Introduction Series 2022, as well as honorary membership in the Pablo Neruda Association in Italy. Her poems have been translated into numerous languages. She previously worked in the media, hotel, and energy industry, but now Amy is the founder of Global Writers, and she regularly organizes poetry and music events in her hometown. A travel lover, she has performed her work in Ireland and internationally, and we are so, so pleased that to now finally have Flirting with Tigers, which is her debut collection, published by Dedalus Press. Would you please welcome just one of the dearest poets I know, Amy Abdullah Berry.
Thank you, Sandy. Good to be here again in Cultivation Live. I'm so happy. Thanks, Sandy, Dawn, and Kim for organizing this. I'm so happy to be here. And I'd like you to take on a journey with me to flirt with my tigers, So I'd like you to take on a journey, an adventure with me into the Malaysian rainforest as my first reading. The breath of the rainforest. We've set up the tent, pale yellow powdered sulfur round its perimeter to hold the slithering of snakes. The ash glow of the sky, the wind, howling into night are all in my mind. I lie, open-eyed, on the sleeping mat, printing images in my head, collecting the echoes of the jungle creatures, tarsiers, toucans, tigers, wild elephants trumpeting troubles from miles across the forest floor. In the morning, the cinnamon air draws me out. Sunlight hammers jagged patterns through layers of maranti leaves. Everyone dives into the river. Its syrupy water like the teh tarik in my cup. Heading to the fern bushes to find the blooming Rafflesia. A growl from the woody bins of bamboo, and I'm squatting eye to eye with a boar. Its skin is shiny black, rough and thick, designed for fighting. And I am ready. My own skin thickens in a breathless second. Startled, the animal vanishes. I pin the breath of the rainforest on my skin. Now, this is a tribute to my late mother. It's called Champaka. Champaka is a Malay name for the magnolias flowers. Champaka. Mama used to sit on a low stool, stoking charcoal after morning prayer, baking moist sweetened bread for breakfast. The raising inside is spiral like the swirling patterns on a tree bark. Her oven, a hefty aluminum pot, 4 times bigger than a cake pan, filled with sand to balance the heat. One morning, when I came to help, Her sarong was soaked red from the waist, twisted like a wilting hibiscus. The hospital doors opened with a gust of antiseptic. My brother and I peeped into ICU. Come in, Mama waved, hurried in her speech. We dashed to her side, but a nurse took us from her. We sat in silence and prayed. Please, God, make Mama's pain go away. Most evenings now, Papa walks in the garden alone. Where the oven used to stand, the air is filled with sweet champaka, the scent of Mama used to wear on her hair. Last year, I was awarded a poetry award in Rome, and I was inspired by the city, the ruins, and I'm gonna take you on a trip to Rome. And this poem is called The Betrayal in Rome. I want to experience places and people long gone, to be close to the past, that it could draw my blood. And so I am here, where gladiators, slaves, and convicts perish for the pleasure of the crowd. This city breathes in dried dust under the midday sun. Cobbled street twisted through its heart, ivy's cap on its buildings. But I am in love with traces of things that were here before us. So I shun the Trevi fountain and all these shiny coins. Maybe it's the heat, but my thoughts grow heavier, and every tourist in summer clothes is an imposter. Tourism since a betrayal of the past. And facing the forum one evening, I'm sure I hear Caesar or whisper, et tu, Brute? The next one is called Rain on the River Suk. This is a river in Roscommon, but not far from me. For once, I don't have to look at my watch. You talk, reliving memories of the river. The dark water sparkles in the moonlight, reeds sway with orchestra harmony. Then, a sudden rain like the force of a pebble strikes my white head. You laugh, pushing up the limb brim. Kiss me. The next one I'll be reading is from a word called 100 Times. From the hurried morning of my death, between the sky and the horizon, I saw my bed still unmade, distracted by the wonders of Shakespeare, lamb's ear, sneeze wits. Bird song to my ears was like a taunt. Pinned to the ground, my heart pushed against my ribs. A man's fingers digging into me, day dark with his eclipse. The sound of my own voice 100 times around me, and on the beach I lay on sand scorched black. layers of crushed shells underneath my skin. I left my 12-year-old body calm as a robin singing in a field. I used to live with a tarot consultant when I was in my early 20s. And this is, I never believe her when she talk about the cards, it's true, what's happening, your future and blah, 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 And so one day, my landlady, the tarot consultant said, Amy, come. And my girlfriend, Tita, sat with me as well. So this poem is dedicated to Tita. Madam Catomancer, her hand spreading her silk scarf, its pattern cracked like China bread, flat on the table. Our dining room, her place of business. One afternoon, we sat on the other side of a scarf, drew cards with cryptic images. Tita's card was the Knight of Cups, a shining armor on a white charger. Mine had the image of a boat. You're heading towards a future in another country, she told me, and you go into business soon. Tita's eyebrows spoke a kind of shorthand. In them, I read her thoughts, nonsense. But she became the sister-in-law of a king, while I forged a living in oil and gas. Here in the Irish countryside, stacked stone walls, hawthorn hedges, baling hay, hay bale jumping, turf cutting, gosh, nettles, cod's foot, rabbits, deer, cows, sheep, and slurry. I find my nonsense in this country living. My next one is my experience in the Hong Kong airport. In that time, I don't know, and maybe till now, there were a lot of diamond smuggling in Hong Kong Island. So, terminal. Bing! I'm there again. Every time I step through an airport. 22, naive, stop at Hong Kong security, thinking only of Hong Kong dollars and tacky souvenirs. I'm taken to a room. I say something, but my voice comes from a place I don't recognize. His eyes hold mine, questions I can't understand. Something about diamonds. I have visions of wasting my life in a squalid prison for something I know nothing about. These things happen, they do. After 2 hours of sweats and questions, shaken heads and accusation, he let loose a sarcastic smirk, opens his office door. I am free to leave. Despite all the years that have passed, I still see him, hear that voice, authoritative, stern. Where's the diamond? My love poem, another one, is called Aging Mist. From fragments of corals and shells, I pick up a round gray pebble, wishing to dip my feet in another ocean. My memories were transoceanic, swelling like musical peaks. And all the years I've walked by the sea, you painted on every pebble. Restless brown eyes, silvered hair grown wild, white sea with ragged beard fluttering, cruising the endowment. Your cracked fingers like spiders on the saxophone, every note pure. Your playing is warm, spinning our favorite song. Memories are missed, even on a clear day.
That is beautiful. Thank you, Amy Berry.
Hang on, one more.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Sorry. My
Last one.
apologies. I thought I heard you say.
No.
Yep,
Another
okay.
one. I like to play a music. This is how the Flirting with Tigers title comes about. Hang on. Music flows on the marble island. Pablo, my tuxedo cat. Listen to Neruda's clenched soul on YouTube. Then he prances about to Lady Hear Me Tonight. I am curled on a couch with pomegranate juice and chocolate deep strawberries, contemplating another poem. Handsome Malayan tiger, eyes amber, irises black as burnt clay. He roars like a high-speed train on the marble island. But I am a Colchi on a sunset prow, insatiable as hot Mary. I flirt with tigers, turn the pages of my notes, and write hormone-fueled dreams. Thank you, everyone.
Now that is Amy Abdullah. The new collection from Dedalus Press is Flirting with Tigers. And I actually really love how the title, how the poem that inspired the title of the collection really does flirt with us. It really does absolutely flirt with us. In its pauses and its cadences. Joanne James wrote, echoed that line that, and I wrote it down the same time in my own, for myself, you know, every note pure, and all the places that we travel to flirt with the tigers with you. Much gratitude. Congratulations on this beautiful debut. And may we hear your voice and poems many more times. Thank you so much. Oh, what do they say? The cup overfloweth. The cup overfloweth. Absolutely. As I transition. Tayve Neese. I feel like honestly today I'm going to spontaneously combust on air. Like it's possible. It's entirely possible. So if I leave the screen, you know why. And if it happens, just know it was the best reason to spontaneously combust and leave this earth. Is all of you and these poems. You know, every time I have the occasion to hear Tayve read, I am just taken to a place where I feel like there is a crispness of truth that I've like been waiting to hear and that I've needed to hear in your poems. And it's no surprise to me that you are this consummate editor that you are, because what you find and what you bring forth through all the poets that you've published over the years, I feel like is represented. It's like the tip of the iceberg of what's and underneath the waterline is your astounding sense of poetry, your own poetry that holds up the foundation of the folks that you bring forth into the world through all the different venues where you've been publishing and amplifying the voices. You know, to say that the poets that you have published yourself and in your own work, to not say how much it's moved me before I even knew you. I didn't know you were the influencer of these poets that I already knew and would come to know. And I'm just so grateful to also then come into connection with your poetry, your own poetry that took me to like a completely different place. It always takes me to this place that I do not know I need to go. And there I am, and I am the better for it. Always when I hear your poems. Well, the more formal biography that I have to share about Tayve is that, folks, Tayve Neese's work has appeared in journals and anthologies all around the United States and abroad, including in the Paris Review, Comstock Review, 14 Hills, and Diode. A Pushcart nominated poet, her work was also longlisted for the 2019 University of Canberra's Vice Chancellor's International Poetry Prize in Australia. Her recent full-length collection, Evolution Psalms, was a finalist for the Hudson Poetry Prize with Black Lawrence Press and published by St. Julian Press. She's the co-founder of Trio House Press. We have featured a number of the astounding poets of Trio House Press here. Again, that is through the vision of what Tayve understands as the voices of poetry. I just am I so respect Trio House and what you have accomplished, and also the founding editor of the Banyan Review, which is an international online journal. We are so fortunate today to have poets who have contributed so much to not only their local, regional, but national and international communities. And Tayve is certainly one of those citizens. And I am very, very pleased to be able to welcome you back to the program. And please welcome Tayve Neese.
Oh, Sandy, thank you so much. Wild gratitude your way. I am so happy to be here. It has been a year for sure. You know how some years zig, some years zag. And so I'm very thankful to be here with you and with Kim, and thank you, Don and Michael and Amy. Beautiful, beautiful poetry. So Evolution Psalms is just over a year old. As I said, it's been a year, and I am no longer the editor at Trio House Press. It's been passed, and beautiful things are ahead, but I'm still leaning into Banyan. I'm loving it. And this is my first rodeo in a while for readings. And so my heart is just blooming right now, listening and participating. So just gratitude, y'all, gratitude. Since it is Mother's Day weekend here in the States, I'm going to read a few poems out of Evolution Psalms. And I love what Sandy said about, that mother energy, whatever it is, whatever form of mothering, whatever it is, we're celebrating that energy. And I believe every human walks around with that energy within that mother energy. So mother chant. Birth mother, flint mother, old mother, water mother, poor mother, woven mother, Mary mother, sick mother, stepmother, Lilith mother, stick mother, stone mother, neon mother, Jewish mother, empty mother, MILF mother, Danu mother, your mother, my mother, bourbon mother, Durga mother, fat mother, first mother, Kali mother, shame mother, bud mother, Jean mother, rib mother, spider mother, queen mother, teen mother, native mother, feathered mother, iron mother, covered mother, naked mother, broken mother, earth mother, barren mother, sly mother, spiral mother, green mother, sow mother, chosen mother, Sappho mother, grandmother, dirty mother, left mother, scared mother, rust mother, milk mother, buried mother, skin mother, moon mother, dry mother, thorn mother, blind mother, rune mother, fertile mother, Lucy mother, swamp mother, you mother, I mother, death mother, arrow mother. So I am a mother. I have two beautiful daughters. And this Mother's Day, I said, I'm leaning into my girls, but I really want to celebrate my mother. My mother passed at 55. I'm 53. And every year I get closer and closer. I just think, oh my gosh, my mother died at 55. So I want to celebrate her and the totality of who she was, the totality of her being a mother. Not just the beauty of it, the thorns of it too, but a little beauty about my mother. What's gone missing in this age of satellites and viruses? The last telephone booth, which stood empty for 2 decades, housed 1980s graffiti. Once, from this spot, while drunk, I spoke to my lover at dusk, watched the park's carousel make its eternal circle. In a storm, I called my mother, now ash, from this metal box shaped like a coffin for a wealthy man. I hear there's still one phone booth in Japan where people talk to their dead, but it is the living who need to listen when I say, they took the phone booth and the old carousel with its painted horses, shelters of my former life made of music, voices. Milking the cow. Weight of her hands on my hands. The length of her body engulfing my child body like a pearl. as we held the udder together, the scent of hay, soil, an animal, my mother's skin. What nourishes isn't ever milk, but rhythm, the pull and squeeze, past parent to daughter, flesh teaching flesh. This is what we turn over during the hollow years. So, I wanted to read a poem about my grandmother. So I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and this is called Georgia Zodiac, because Georgia has its own zodiac. Georgia Zodiac. My grandmother, an egret. My grandfather, a blue crab. It's as simple as that, where scuppernongs grow and the banks are covered with oysters. So I loved when Michael read, he had this list of these gorgeous names of places in Ireland. And I've been to a few, but I'm hoping to get to more of them. And they're just, the names are beautiful, beautiful. So there's a poem about my grandmother. We've got some names from Georgia. North to Bonaventure for Emma's unveiling. Oh, sulfur sweet marshes, I crossed to find you, plot, stone. Currents are slow, run south, brittle grasses lean north, pointing my way home to Savannah. Egrets as angular as knives rise from marsh roots that search deep through mud, clay, past moisture and mollusk, to a place that is still and dry, impossible to fathom in this place of tides. I've always crossed water on my way to you, the Satilla, Jericho, and Ogeechee grasses, as beige and giving as your belly, where I rested my head in Tayve's rope hammocks. Even now, for only your echo, I travel over this steady rhythm of low bridges. And I'm going to read one more poem from Evolution Psalms and then change it up a bit. So I went through this phase where I was like pulling all of these, Evolution Psalms, there are a lot of scientific poems in there, or poems like that I pulled titles from the Smithsonian Magazine or, different news outlets. And this one is Baby Whale Seems to Think Yacht is Its Mother. AP Press, August 19th, 2008. So Baby Whale Seems to Think Yacht is its mother. I also replace her with stern bow for the primal lull of her rhythmic rocking. Lost, I've spent a lifetime swimming riptides in the wrong direction, floating in the soft chasm of a reluctant lover's neck, listening for a heartbeat promising nourishment. My whole life, a compass, searching for her, scent meant to bring me back to her arms, breast. Under green eyes of strangers, I wait for the familiar sea glint of approval over my iron dress. Follow the closest floating object to avoid undertow and drift. So those are from Evolution Psalms, and I'm going to change it up a bit before I back the truck up. I wanted to read a couple of books, a couple of poems that are in Locust, which is coming out with Salmon in the future. So I think this whole concept of mothering, we've got our physical body mother, we've got mother energy, but I also think that there's a whole lot of earth and mother energy. And so I'm settling back into my own sense of place and my own sense of geography and earth and mother. So the title of this is I liked Amy's poem about the river. This is St. John's River Lures Me Home. It's a beautiful river. It's wide. Oh, it's a gorgeous river. Okay, St. John's River lures me home. What remains of the origin I loved? The branches of pecan trees are the only threshold. Let the years relish over what they've broken, but the tin roof, frail and silent, is no virtue. Here, there's no need for citrus, goat's milk. Here, there's no bantam angry at the sun or hens perched on crooked fences. They're gone. Fields are high, my father's mowing done. These cicadas, their voices thick as rust, are they the damned or angels clinging to leafless trees, begging for meat from branches rotting nuts? And how will I tell? All they leave behind? Their brittle empty shell. This is where the coral snake missed my ankle. This is where I planted tomatoes. This is where the cancer followed. This is where the possum played dead. My mother thought was rabid. And here is where she lost her mind. The years that followed rancid. In that cypress along the banks, an osprey kept her nest. I marked her comings and goings, her talons thick with fish. And so I kept my eyes open in ecstasy over what remained during sorrow of consistency. The river, its slow habit of flow, blood. Next door still lives the father of the son who raped and murdered the neighbor girl everybody loved. Where would he go to forget her name? Shed his shame as a cicada shell, amber and hollow, everywhere it would follow. Our dock is taken by barnacles, tied, its pilings tired of standing upright for so long. It's natural for all vertical things to long for the horizon. And so the wood from exhaustion moans under our weight. Below the river tires, its depth heavy with crustaceans, bones of bass. I hear the dried reeds crackle, rest, rest. Are they the damned with their thin wings, their voices of rust? Will they stop their song or let it hang on as a memory coveted too long? My father does not tend the fields. My father does not mend the fence. He has left the river and its slow current dragging everything down to its brackish bottom. Now who will repair the stair or spread the mulch after the tooth of winter has taken another bite? Who will gather the discarded feathers of the osprey? Her nest empty as night. These acres and fields must think of us. There is so much to cover, so many years of sorrow to grow over with thistle and thorns, so no others will recover the family's habit of silence, their scorn, the mother, the father, the sister, the brother. Where have they gone? One forgets the other. The river is the same. It calls, it beckons. The St. John's lures me home again with gifts of cottonmouths as anklets, bayonet palms as bedding for sleep. The river calls, come home, beauty, to adornments of osprey talons above your left shoulder. Come home, beauty, to sting of bees, promising honey from clover. Brackish water will be your mirror. Below, the float and scuttle of blue crabs during low tide quickly fasten thick claws onto my slick reflection's eyes. Returning home, it is the vine that takes down the clapboard and stairs. Weeds, they mend. The cicadas, frantic, begin their song again. Thank you. Thank you.
I wrote down that I have been taken by the river of your poetry. I have just been taken by the river of that poetry.
Gratitude.
Oh my gosh. That is the epic voice and poetry of Tayve Neese from Evolution Psalms and the upcoming Locust. We're salmon sisters. We're salmon sisters. I can never hold it back. You know, when one of my sibs is on the program. Another thing, what I heard again from one of your own lines, you nourish the rhythm. You nourish the rhythm in your own poetry, like every single poem. Today, so far, it has been litany after litany after litany, hasn't it? Incredible, incredible. These individual and such distinctly different chants from each of our poets today. Well, I'm glad I didn't spontaneously combust. I came very, very close, but I needed to be here because our next poet, I love Yuyutsu Sharma's poetry so much, and every time he's been on this program has been a tremendous, tremendous gift to our audience, and he's a gift to the world of poetry. There's just no other way to put it. There's just no other way to put it. The contributions that Yuyutsu has made in all of his work as the consummate editor of Pratique, a quarterly magazine of contemporary writing, he helps set and create the conversation around poetry worldwide. That is his work, that is his calling. And when you hear his own poetry, you understand why he is so well equipped to be that divining rod that brings people together through poetry. It is always incredible honor for me to be in his presence on Zoom. And when I get to meet him in person, I will probably fall to the ground. Yuyutsu Sharma is one of the few poets in the world who make their living writing poetry and editing and supporting poetry. Named as the world-renowned Himalayan poet by The Guardian, Yuyutsu is a vibrant force on the world poetry stage. That is a true understatement, if there ever was one. He's a recipient of fellowships and grants from the Rockefeller Foundation, Ireland Literature Exchange, and many others. And he is the author of 11 poetry collections. Most recently, and I love this title so much, Lost Horoscopes and Other Newer Poems, published by Nirala Publications. He has read his poetry all over the world at prestigious literary centers, and he conducts creative writing workshops at various universities in North America and Europe. But he loves to trek in the Himalayas when he is back home. Currently, he edits Pratique, a quarterly magazine of contemporary writing. I hope now more than a few years ago, that you were either with us live or watched our video of an amazing launch of one of the issues with the authors from Pratik. I thank you so much. It's very, very early in the morning, where Yuyutsu is joining us from Kathmandu today. So thank you for staying up late or being up early, depending on what's been going on. And I can't wait to hear your voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for keeping the flame of poetry alive in this world. And you have been a great support during the pandemic. And we had this rough patch where we try to survive through pandemic. And before that, there was this earthquake in Nepal. So we have survived all these terrible, ordeals. So I would begin with reading. I just came from a short trek in the Annapurnas, and I was by the lakeside by Pokhara and reading work by Tayve and Michael and Amy. I was really touched by the whole contemporary, agony that we are undergoing. So this will begin with my poem on Nepal earthquakes from my book, Lost Horoscope. It says, where would my story end? Himalayas is on a very delicate location geographically, and there are earthquakes. And so in Hindu scriptures, it is considered that this is called Jambu Deep, an island. So a few thousand years ago, India was an island. It wasn't. Himalayas didn't exist. So it was few thousand, in the history of the Earth. The Himalayas are very recent phenomena. So there was no Himalayas, and so there was some commotion. So when people keep asking me why do you go back to Nepal and why do you live there? Because I do not know where else to be, because that's the place where I belong. So the poem says, where would my story end? In the crevices of a cracked paradise, jolting from an elastic energy, trapped in the earth's sanguine womb, I have untilted sideways the paralytic face of a hillside grandma left out in the cold by dim-eyed demons of a flailing polity. They predict a disaster here, a future fractured from the accumulation of an ocean of molten moss. A divine frenzy, a reserved vision, a reversed vision of Earth's unmaking, retracting herself into an island again, a Jambu Deep, an island of eternal Vedic hymns. Someday they say the Earth will change her side in sleep, exasperated from a turbulence in the reservoirs of kinetic energy, shaken from a vision of an impending doom. An Ajima, a Harati, so our primordial mother goddess of numerous offsprings, bearing her own squealing newborn beneath the weight of her hefty torso in the whirling black tunnel of her postnatal sleep. Geophysicists, panelists, prophets of the whimsical West, pundits of the twisted East, I see them squinting through the fogged holes, imagining a cosmic crash in the valley of Lord himself. But where is there for me to desert it and end my grand story? My Himalayas, my Nepal, like my own destiny, a life suspended in mid-sentence, a journey in smudged lanes of centuries' crooked sleep. The broad-chested canyons, glaciers melting like tantric trophies from the master of time, Padmasambhava's snow sanctuaries full of thought bodies, of bleary-eyed wanderers, reeking of hallucinating yantras, hubris of consuming fresher fragments of a newer galaxy. What if tomorrow, what if this very moment, Kailash opens up, tearing up carpets of white rabbits, racing along the green pastures of turquoise lakes? What if Lord's own pinnacle of patience crumbles and newly found republic turns into a tiny morsel in the jaws of a mighty dragon of an apocalypse. What if, I wonder, where, I wonder, then would my story end? So this about Nepal. I was asked in Kew Gardens in London. They were during pandemic. They were doing this show that you can visit the world at Kew Gardens, and so they had 5 or 6 artists, poets from 6 continents, and they wanted me to write this poem on Annapurnas, on Himalayas. So I picked this poem on rhododendron because they are rhododendron trees. There's a section in Kew Garden in London. So I wrote this poem. It's called Rhododendron Suitor. And it comes from a folk story, folk tale. It says, in old times, there used to be, there were times when, trees would walk. So this Himalayan elder was walking and he with some guy. And then he took him to the forest rhododendron tree and said, would you like to marry her? And he was a matchmaker. And the Himalayan elder said, no, she's so shriveled. It was winter and she doesn't have any flowers. I mean, she's horrible. I don't want to marry her. And this rhododendron was very, very offended. She said, well, she didn't like it. And then comes spring and she was all blooming with all these flowers. And the elder was passing by and he said, oh God, I'm in love with her. He went to her and said, would you marry me? She said, what do you mean? You jilted me. You kind of rejected me before. I don't want to marry you. Go away. I don't like you. And so he got so upset. He said, no, I want to marry you. And so he was so desperate. He jumped off the cliff and died. So that's why the elders are always on the slope. And so rhododendron it is a story behind the whole this folk story. So this poem talks about rhododendron suitor, monarch of the Himalayan forests, ornament of the snow summits, vanquished rival of the rose, an eternal lover jilted by the silver-barked shooter of steep hills, the Nepalese elder, sparse shade of a forest shaman fleeing a female yeti's golden kukri, your flaming forest simmering from a memory of fierce soldiers lost to foreign wars in far-off lands, today have mounted 3,330 flagstone steps on the Annapurna slope to hear your name kicking up a million memories in the bulky trusses on your paradise on fire, with hidden poisons to harm or heal. Through the cracks of your ruby-red canopies, I once watched virgin galaxies, held her heated hand and forged promises, shaming her spring awakening. She stands near the waterfall with her baby, a fractured vow stuck in my throat, without a drop of Rhoda syrup to mellow it. Like your Paris soldier, you're like your Paris suitor, destined to suffer in his afterlife on a steep slope, lusting for the blood-red flourish of your celestial frame. So I want to read one poem about California. So I was in California and I was in a birthday party, and this woman, people, when I travel, they think I'm very exotic, so some people I'm from Asia and stuff like that. And I just had my new tie, and this woman was kind of drunk, and she came to me and said, give me your tie. And where are you from? What kind of, you're from, man from Asia, this and that. And, oh, you think you're a poet? Oh God, why do the university get you from here? She was very rude. And I gave her my tie and she went away. And then she wanted me to write a poem on her birthday girl. The girl was there. So it was a birthday party so I think it was in San Francisco. So I said, I will write a poem. She said, no, right now, give me a poem, prove that you're a poet. So I wrote this poem and proved that I'm a poet. And so it's called Unstitching a California Poem. For days and weeks, I wondered what she meant as she departed with my red necktie I had bought a week before at Macy's. I can't believe they have you here all the way from the Himalayas to teach poetry at the university. She began in her southern accent, staggering on her high heels in a dimly lit bar that Jeff had asked me to rush to from the fisherman's wharf, where I had stood for hours watching the framed coastline, a clam chowder bread bowl in my hands. Her red Marlana, one shoulder ruffles, bodycon dress bellowing, pleats of slithering sea lions, stories of a little town on the northern California shore that her father had to leave for scandalously shooting a bear who came every evening to lick fruits in a lush flower garden. In the cab, amidst a swirl of merry gossip and anecdotes of mighty madmen, as we drove to the Albanian place, only a few blocks down the Valencia Street, lured by Jeff's assertion that he had his photographer with one of the jazz celebrities hanging on the wall, she teased me from the back seat. You need to prove it, mister, that you are a poet. And later in the waiting lounge, timidly touching my red tie, you dress too elegantly to be a poet from Tibet or wherever you say you are from. Let us see if you can write a poem for our birthday girl tonight. As evening progressed, I learned more of the birthday group of tall, boyish girl, kind, compassionate of Ohio origins. Her loaded on makeup, her gaudy dress at first glance, suggesting a transvestite. One more time, she hurled a rebuke. You, Yo-Yo, what would take you to write a poem for my friend? And to a nervous assertion, sure, I'm working on it. I'll write one. One for you and one for your friend. She cheered out loud, nearly kicking off the lone candle on a tiny square of cheesecake that we spooned out and licked in honor of the high hygiene California ritual. Later, as I was on my way to the restroom, she approached me again. I love your tie. Can you give it to me? I looked in her green eyes and saw wild animals prowling there and meekly handed it over to her. You're so sweet, she squealed. But I have stitches in my vagina tonight. Sorry, I can't make love to you. She left with my blood red tie. I kept the promise and wrote the poem. So this was more of a kind of fun. So I want to come to the title poem. As I hope, Sandy, we have time. For it's a kind of rather longish. So this is the title poem of the book, Lost Horoscope. So when I was about 7-year-old, in Punjab, I was growing up with my maternal grand, like today's Mother's Day. So mother's father, I was staying with him. He adopted me as his hire. So I was, and he went to the priest and made my horoscope. We had my horoscope ready. So, and he said that when I'm 6, I will die. So the whole family was very petrified, and I didn't die, so, but somehow I lost, my grandfather passed away, and I lost my horoscope. And then again, it said that if he doesn't die when he's 6, he will die when he's 60. It's like when he crosses the 6th letter of his life. So when the pandemic came, I was nearly 60. So I panicked. I said, my God, I'm going to die, And then all of a sudden, all that time of lost horoscope, like all that, my childhood, it came back to me. All the small town and all the, the terror and then the pandemic and the fever, the plague and typhoid. And, it was the whole. And also I was all of a sudden taken back to the time when I wasn't, I was in a small town and God was everything, We believed in God. We believed in shamans. We believed in the holy people who could cure us. And then I started going to university and educated, and I got rid of all that stuff. But then again, during pandemic, I was at God's mercy. I mean, the science had proved that science was taking us nowhere. So this thing all of a sudden rushed. And so I'll read this because it's called Lost Horoscope. Believe me, I'm risking my life here, coming out in the open to sit in the Cafe Mozart, to resume my routine of pouring sparks from my tamed sleep onto the pages of my Moleskine notebook that had remained blank for more than a year. A familiar fright keeps hammering the clammy walls of my fast-shrinking brain, my jaws unhinged, twitching noisily as I crack open my mouth to suck the still quarantined air. My body spooled, fever as a dry twig, my sight fractured from staring into the rings of a stupor. I wake up to sit upright in my bed, bend my neck to stare at my feet on the floor. I part them and bring them back together. Nothing seems to get better. It refuses to go away. The phantom that all night long hovered over my bedpost, gliding in and out of the cavern of delirium that once surfaced in the labyrinth of my horoscope, piling up an irreparable pagoda of quavering ashes. The boy will climb 6 steps on the golden ladder, stumble on the 7th, blinded by a collusion of inauspicious stars, and crash into an abyss, bringing everything down in a wasteful heap of despair in a hellhole. I have faint memories of the lanky priest, his smallpox face, his tiny head wrapped up in a large white starched cotton turban. Under the light of a maroon sky, we went to his cubicle-shaped shop along the narrow brick lanes leading to the main bazaar that Muslims of our town had left behind in rush prior to crossing the bleeding borders almost a decade before my birth. The priest had worked tirelessly on it, taking weeks, and with his wicked eyes dimmed in a feverish anxiety, handed it over to my grandpa in an erratic rush. A scroll of scented homemade paper, tied up in vermilion thread, sealed from the wax of sun's soggy eyes, a crumpled calendar of chaos with astral lines and circuitous loops forecasting my doom in the second decades of the new millennium. Back home, Grandpa spread it on the bear cart to read its scraps in the twilight of our courtyard, like a beguiled seafarer trapped in the frozen stretch of a Dead Sea. Then very next year, Grandpa passed away, and the demons from the capital city rushed in to crack the courtyards and erect walls, and Horoscope got mislaid in one of his almirahs. I looked for it everywhere, went up the attic, searched through the dank drawers, checked out his wooden boxes full of moldy English classics, even dug a part of my courtyard so to see if he had hidden it with his gold and other precious items. Half a century later, caught up in a deadly fever in the Himalayas, twisting my limbs in a bed moist from my sweat, my head throbbing from dismal forecasts and my imminent doom, the revelations of the horoscope return. COVID marked the demigod on YouTube, making me seek refuge in the Bollywood songs of the 70s as I tuned in the local FM stations during my quarantined hours. Sarkar ne aake mera haal to pucha, dil ka fasana ban gaya acha. So kind of you, Your Highness, so kind of you to come and inquire about my well-being. Rajkumar, Sanjeev Kumar, Vinod Mehra with his wavering hair, मैंने हंसने का वादा किया था कभी, गीत गाता हूँ मैं. I had promised to smile once, so I continue to sing. Bleak world of charcoal smoke filling the dark alleys of my town, kerosene stoves shaking from spell of provincial deities, dalda milk rusks dipped in the cups of bland tea and relished like finest treats from the paradise. A dingy world of my Punjabi town where God was the only resort, and we mere minions without eyes or limbs, worms without size or shape, culprits crawling on our bellies in his glorious kingdom, fretting to seek solace, sleep, or salvation. We cringed like moths with large torsos in the wingless realms of illogical proclamations before quantum shafts of light fell on the bottom of our Yeti caves. Before the arrival of polythene, Tetra Paks, thermocol, before I pulled my grandpa's carved wooden boxes and took the books and sold them in tiny piles to the local grocery store to wrap up his meager merchandise in crisp, enduring pages. Before vaccines darted our shaft shoulders, before penicillin, before arrival of antibiotic pills, before the evolution of mankind, before rejection of the will of the cells that shaped us, before their crusades to occupy our earth, our food, our water, before they resolved to fling everything into a virtual cartel, before when my mother crushed herbal herbs in our quiet little kingdom with shiny stones and made miraculous paste to apply on my forehead as I tossed in bed, still smell of paddy fields in the neighborhood wafting to cloud my distraught mind. At night, she massaged my throat with her tender fingers soaked in desi ghee from the bell jar placed beside the cot. As I lay waiting for the fever to plummet, I noticed someone moving in the virgin galaxies above. Bauji, Grandpa, I cried out. The pungent smell of sliced mangoes spread out to dry on the white sheets on the rooftop. A moldy world of rickety realities, a hyperbole of spiritual deities, a medley of omens, spirits wheeling in and out of our sleep. In the courtyard of our town, a gateway to the affluence of Central Asia. And one day, I saw a baby's body covered in white sheet being carried to the cremation guard. He had died from the typhoid I was recovering from. It sent me hurling into a deep pit where I continued to languish for a decade or more before they took out their fiendish rods of resentment, challenging my faith in the magic of sacred breaths. I grew up in a small town of homegrown deities, Peer Babas, where a smelly bull sauntered in the well-fed streets like a famed wrestler, stopping before every home, expecting a bowl of dough, a banana, a leftover chapati, or some such treat with the elan of a deity. His manly smell perpetuating the people's faith in the flaming hearth of abundance, and a hope in the touch of the wise hand or a family formula to cure all, even the shape of an embryo in the mother's womb. An eye of a peacock's feather dropped in a swirl of ecstatic moment and smashed up in a sea of milk and molasses. A sanctified Russell, a supervision so special, it shooed away all the demons of the innocent dark, a homegrown power pool of sacred energy that could paralyze a miscreant or an innocent one erroneously defiling the periphery of discarded tomb. Babas with baffling long beards, able to squeeze blood out of a swindled load of bread. Paralytic mystics with sacred twinge in the eye, saliva gloriously dripping over their gray beards. Porcupine-sized mahants, barely able to bend to bless the humble head that lay at their feet. A decadence of beliefs so alluring, a faith in the elements that could round up everything we believed in. Tumi ho mata, pita tumi ho. You are the mother, you the father, you the actual friend, the only living relative. Hearing prayers drenched in the monsoon showers of the Himalayan valleys, rolling in the world of spirits and sages, I'm risking my life here, racing to Cafe Mozart, hoping to recover what lay in the horoscope I lost decades ago, a forgotten hallucination, hitting my sunlit canyons all over again. After half a century of hobbling in the cathedrals of my relentless wanderings, turning my lifespan into a monstrous Nostradam moment. Perhaps all those prophecies were true. Thank you. It was a little rather long, so I wanted to read it in the whole poem to you guys. And I run this magazine, Tayve does this banyan tree. So I have said to send some poems to her. This is the new issue of South Asia. So you're welcome to contribute to it. And next issue, we are having poets from Colorado and poets from Cordoba. And then we have, so after that, we are doing Australian issue. And then we are looking for a special New York. So we do different varieties. So feel free to get in touch and we'll continue. And thanks, Sandy. And it was an honor to read with all these lovely poets today.
Oh my
Namaste. Please
God.
come to Nepal.
That is Sharma. What a reading. And to end with that anthem, what I think of now as your anthem poem, Lost Horoscope. You know, what I appreciate so much about your work is how you carry yourself, you absorb the world. I mean, you absorb the world to find and share the stories. It is like what you do. It is in every fiber of your being. And are we all not the better that you listened and found your calling? There is no question what your calling was, to be in this world. That is Lost Horoscope and other newer poems from Yuyutsu Sharma. Folks, we had a litany beyond litany of poetry today. Kim and I had built this reading up in our minds in such an exaggerated way that it couldn't possibly live up to itself, and it exceeded it. And I did not spontaneously combust. That's the good part. I made it. I made it through to listen and hear every single word. We heard, of course, today from Michael Durack, Amy Abdullah Berry, Tayve Neese, and Yuyutsu Sharma. Everyone, would you please unmute and show your appreciation for our poets today?
Wonderful.
Yay!
Bravo,
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Sandy, you've muted yourself.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi, Sandy.
Again, my exuberance. I do it. I mute myself. Most people are like, thank you. Everybody.
But it's better than combusting anyway.
It's better than combusting, I guess. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, today for being here. Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Today, our new book showcase. Next Sunday, our wild card open mic. Wild card. You know, May is just wild. It's just been wild. And so the wild card, you bring your poems. We get to hear them. That's what the wild card open mic is all about. Our last reading for the month of May. Look forward to seeing you. Get here early, 15 minutes before showtime to sign up. They fill up fast, so please do. If you're watching this on the video this week, make sure you come a little early. Those of you in the room, you know to come early. And I hope everyone will join us and bring a friend or 10. Again, folks, for today's reading, of course, please do, if you have the resources, please do support the poets. We've got the links. They'll be posted onto Cultivating Voices Live Poetry site tomorrow, thanks to Kim Force-Parsons. And the videos of our recording will be available very shortly on our Facebook page and on YouTube, thanks to Don Krieger. The devotion of these two people is unparalleled and much appreciated. Well, I look forward to the next time we're together next Sunday, and I hope you all have an amazingly smashing rest of your day, evening for Yuyutsu. You know, I go back to sleep, get up.
It's 2 o'clock, yeah.
2 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
have a good morning, and
Yeah.
we will see you, my friends. You know, there was much touchback to the pandemic, to COVID in this reading today, and it's important, I think, to continue to remind ourselves, as I always do, continue to take very good care of yourselves. Take good care of your beloveds. I always say this every single reading, and through all of it that we've been through these past years, and that we continue to move through and move with, the one consistent thing that has helped us make it through is that you all have kept writing. And I always say at the end of the program, keep writing. So keep writing, my friends. It will be the thing that will continue to lift us wherever we are in the world. And thank you for, we had an incredible representative of being from around all the time zones today in this reading. Again, I look forward to seeing you next time with all your horoscopes, all your psalms, all your stories, all your songs. This is Sandy, for Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Be well.